Hello friends, if you're watching this video, the chances are you're wondering, what do you actually use Clay for? And if that's the question that you still have in the back of your mind, you're watching the right video. So essentially, in simple terms, worth reminding you that Clay is just the middleman between the input and the output. Clay is just the bridge between the two. And in simple terms, what I mean by that is you still need to source data before entering Clay. So for that, you can go and scrape data, you can go and find people data on a platform like Apollo, or you can go somewhere like Sales Navigator, or you can go and source company lists in all sorts of other fancy places. However, worth noting that Clay does not really provide you with data itself, so I would very much recommend you, if you're considering to use Clay, you still need some input, whether that's people lists, company lists, or scraped data. Now, more than that, sometimes you can also import CSVs, you can import data via webhooks and APIs, which is actually a lot simpler than you'd think. And also there are a bunch of other data sources like OceanIO, PandaMatch, whatever you call it, like this is just the input. Now, what Clay then does with the data is it can then help you research those companies and research those people, qualify them for your ICP based on the criteria that you give it. You can then build certain lists, you can find specific signals and sales triggers, personalized outreach, and have a fully generated email template that you then need to still push to an output tool. And what I mean by an output tool, for example, you can push it into a CRM, maybe you push it into email automation, maybe you push it into LinkedIn automation, or you can add it to some sort of fancy Excel sheet, Google Sheet, any form of database, or transfer it via an API, a webhook, or even set a task for your sales rep so that as soon as an inbound inquiry comes in from the input, so let's say it's from your website, Clay does all of this fancy stuff and straight away notifies your sales rep inside of your CRM to basically follow up with this lead as soon as they leave an inquiry on the website. So that's the first quick disclaimer. This is what Clay is. It's not going to solve all of your headaches just yet. However, it will help you to automate all of this boring manual stuff that you do when you're starting with some sort of input data, and like all of this stuff can be automated, such as researching companies and people and so on. Now that we're clear on what Clay actually is, let's see what Clay can basically do. And we already covered this, so you can enrich the inputs, so you can basically find more information about the inputs, you can research all of that data, you can generate personalization at scale, automate what you typically do. And it's not just a fancy tool where you import it into like the data into Clay and then AI just does something funky and something crazy for you. You need to know step by step what you do manually in order to be able to mimic that inside of Clay. So I hope that's crystal clear. Now that we understand that, we talked about the different outputs. Let's talk about the specific use cases. What do you actually use Clay for? So 99% of the time, you will import a bunch of people and companies into Clay. You will automate the manual research and all that fancy stuff that we just talked about. You can also use it for account research if you're doing account-based marketing. You can do it for TAM sourcing, so where you're trying to you have a huge list of companies and you're trying to map out your total addressable market. You can then score those accounts based on buying intent, so you can push in signals from, let's say, Crunchbase and all these fancy places and just score accounts so that you're not reaching out cold to completely irrelevant people. You can also use it for data cleaning and data normalization. So, for example, if you have a bunch of stale data in your CRM that's outdated, you can push it inside of Clay. Clay can then basically enrich those people, see if they're still working at their current companies, and then you can push that data back into your CRM so it's up to date completely. Now, one of the most overlooked use cases, as I mentioned, is the old and missing data points, because a lot of the time your data will be out of date within a year of you adding it to your CRM. The main thing about Clay is that you can rent subscriptions that you don't already own. So, for example, Built With would cost you $500 a month right now to go if you were to try and figure out if you were to go and buy it directly. However, inside of Clay, you get it for just 2 credits for each enrichment that you do. So Clay is great for that because you can try a bunch of tools without having to commit to those subscriptions, but it also is a lot more expensive, and we'll cover that later down the line as well. Now, another use case, we already mentioned this, but you can do inbound retargeting inside of Clay, and that's super, super common, whereby someone submits a form, maybe it's an anonymous website visitor, so someone that just visits your website, and you just want to hit them with a cold email or a LinkedIn message within a minute of them visiting the website. And Clay can help you connect all of these tools so that you can basically automate what you would do manually otherwise. So those are some of the generic use cases. Now I'm going to focus specifically on the B2B use cases, then briefly on the B2C and direct-to-consumer ones, and then I'll talk about some funky, creative, and niche use cases that I've seen mentioned before as well. Now, please have a look at these highlighted ones over here, simply because all of these, the ones that are highlighted, underlined, and are in bold, all of these I teach inside of Unlock Clay, which is the course that I have on clay.com. And some of my favorite workflows are targeting new enroll people, so that as soon as someone is new enroll in one of your target companies, you send them a personalized email saying, hey, noticed you just joined. Typically, that means your priorities X and Y. Curious, have you thought of a way how to? And then you pivot towards like a poke the bear question, which basically somehow is tying into your solution. So that's the new enroll workflow. You can also do the same thing with with someone that just visited your website. The most famous one being RB2B, and I'm sure you would have heard about RB2B unless you've been living under a rock for the last couple of years. It basically helps you to identify any people that visit your website, even if they don't fill in any sort of like inquiry form on your website. So that's that. Then you can basically scrape people that follow your competitors. So let's say you are Nike, you go after anyone that follows Adidas on, let's say, LinkedIn, and you can then retarget them under the assumption that they follow your competitors and they fit your ideal client profile. You can also look at job descriptions, because job descriptions a lot of the time tell you about product launches, about the key initiatives within a company. And based on that, you can basically qualify companies for your pre-qualify companies for your specific service, and you can then retarget those companies once again. And that's another thing that I teach inside of the course. And then more than that, we can reach out to lookalike companies. For example, let's say you currently work with HubSpot. We will reach out to Salesforce and a bunch of other similar lookalike companies, assuming that, first of all, we have the social proof, so we can say we helped a similar company to yours. And then secondly, we already understand that they fit our ideal client profile because we understand the persona that we're selling to there. On top of that, you can research case studies on company websites and reference them in Outreach. Once again, this is like a really easy thing to set up. I teach that inside of the course as well. For candidate sourcing and HR, which is like a very much overlooked niche field right now, we're one of the only Clay experts that I actually certified to be teaching this and to be executing now on behalf of clients. And with this specific use case, you can automatically qualify and outreach to candidates that fit into your specific like recruitment pipeline requirements. So for example, you can filter for the years of experience, you can automatically qualify them, and that basically spares you the manual like refreshing of all the different LinkedIn profiles and not having to read through a bunch of different profiles to decide who's a good fit for the second round of interviews. More than that, you can follow up people that attended webinars. You can even like personalize outreach to them. You can even like talk about specifically what they said during the webinar. If you have the webinar transcripts, you can chase after people that attended conferences. You can scrape a bunch of different conferences and reach out to companies and people within those companies that attended the conferences. You can monitor for job changes and promotions across your total addressable market. So a lot of the time, you would have a company hit list, and you want to make sure that you are notified as soon as someone changes jobs. Let's say they move to a competitor, because that's a good opening for you. Alternatively, they're promoted within the company so that you can hit them with some sort of fancy personalized cold email as well. More than that, you can find job openings from your target companies. And once again, we talked about this briefly already. And the one thing which I absolutely love about Clay, and without which I probably would not be able to run the agency that we currently run, that's evergreen campaigns. I'm not sure if you've heard about evergreen campaigns, but the idea behind it is that you never top up lead lists, again, simply because it will automatically scrape data on a daily basis or on a weekly basis. So, for example, every single time that someone engages with a post of my competitor, we can retarget them with a cold email saying, hey, I noticed you engaged with Max Mitchum's posts 6 times in the last month, and typically that means that you're in the market right now for this specific solution, right? Or something of that sort. And the beauty of this is you can set up evergreen campaigns inside of Clay for all sorts of purposes. For example, as soon as a company posts a job, we hit up their hiring manager 45 days after the job is posted, if the job is still live on their website, just so that we basically say, hey, you're pretty much screwed now. It's been 40 days since you posted this role. The chances are you are looking for plan B, and we're that plan B because, we are a recruitment agency, for example. And once again, this is a workflow that I teach inside of the course. So these are some of the most mainstream B2B use cases. The limits like the kind of limitation of what you can do inside of Clay is just your creativity. And I know that sounds like really, really cringe and really, really abstract, but that is 100% true. If you can pin down what you do manually, the chances are you can probably automate it inside of Clay, assuming you have the right training, or assuming you have the right kind of implementation partner for this. Let's gradually move to the B2C and the direct to consumer use cases. And specifically in this case, these are some of the most mainstream ones. So let's say you are trying to provide a service for an e-commerce brand and you have an abundance of data about people and what products they purchased in the past. You can then feed this data into AI and say, hey, if they purchase this product, then suggest this other product to cross-sell them to. And you can basically create personalized offers for different customer segments and then funnel that into whatever email marketing platform you use, so that you basically just programmatically push them from, let's say if they bought, like, I don't know, a product A, you can push them to product B, which tends to be complementary, which people buy together. So that's the first kind of use case that you can have for direct consumer brands. More than that, you can then personalize the messages to all of them, saying, hey, like, it's been, I don't know, like 6 months since you last tried our subscription, or, you know, something of that sort. You can automatically route the leads into different email marketing campaigns based on things like email clicks and purchases. That's another like niche use case that I've tried. Translation of emails, once again, of course, it might be different, but for the languages that we've tried so far, the translation of emails has been spot on. So you can use AI to translate emails and send it to different type of target audiences, which is especially useful if you're expanding to a new market and your team is based out, let's say, like the UK, and you can't speak Spanish, right? So needless to say, that's another niche use case. You can also generate subtitles and transcripts, which is perhaps the most boring project that I've ever worked on inside of Clay. So please don't ask me to do that for you. And then on top of that, you have all sorts of old email list segmentation based on campaigns that they were enrolled in. So once again, you can import a bunch of people and the names of campaigns that they were in before, and based on that, funnel them into different kind of like customer tags for your CRM or something of that sort. Another use case which can be applied anywhere is AI video generated content sent to customers. So in simple terms, I'm sure you heard about the whole idea of UGC. And I don't actually know what UGC's content stands for. I think it's user generated content. And it's basically like when, let's say I sip this can of Pepsi right now and I say, hey, I love Pepsi, here it is. But instead of that actually being me, it's like an AI like image, like an AI video. So you can generate those inside of Clay as well. So once again, you can then send like newsletter. You can basically do that inside of Clay as well, assuming that you connect it to the right tools. And then finally, you have all sorts of other fancy stuff. So you can, the rest of this is just going to be creative and niche workflows, which have zero utility in my eyes, apart from just like helping you to interview the people. Let's say if you run an agency, it could be quite useful to interview people and ask them, you know, how they would pull this off. But essentially things like translating a recipe book, creating an adoption profile for pets. And this is what Clay actually lists on their website. So these are just some niche use cases. Someone apparently built matchmaking services for dating, I guess. Another fun use case. Recipe creators we already talked about. You can do AI generated voice notes via LinkedIn to target persona. So you can like hit up people with AI generated voice notes that sound just like yourself, but obviously make sure that it's legal in whatever country you're doing this in. You can probably do AI videos as a whole as well, where like you record a video once and then you can use a tool like SenseSpark to actually do that for you. And once again, SenseSpark is pretty expensive, but I would really suggest that you check it out because the idea is you just record a video once and then you can send it to your target prospects and it just fills in their name and some of the other funky stuff there as well. Here is the thing, the end goal of all of this we already talked about is probably pushing all of this data into some sort of email automation, LinkedIn automation, or just enriching your CRM, CSV files, anything of that sort. But all of this relies on one thing, and that one thing is you being able to actually pull off all of these funky use cases. And the only way you can really learn this super, super fast is through a course or through some sort of personalized one-on-one training. At the time of me recording this, this is the most affordable course on the market. It only costs £100. We teach you a lot of the workflows that are highlighted on this page over here. So in fact, I think it's about 7 or 8 different workflows. You can see some of these for yourself over here. So like new enroll, followers of competitors, all of these. And I break them down in a super, super straightforward way so that you can basically walk from start to finish and understand how to do this. Now, you will get full-time access to the course with a 30-day money-back guarantee. It only costs £100, which is probably 10 times cheaper, 15 times cheaper than most of the courses on the market. And if it does not live up to the hype, literally drop me a message, I'll refund you. So far, I think one person had a legitimate reason for a refund out of over 300 students in the last 3 months alone. So if you want to take me up on that, by all means, just feel free to join the course. I'd love to see you on the inside. I've seen this work as well for internal trainings. If you're onboarding a new sales employee and you want to teach them Clay, this is definitely the right place to go. Alternatively, we also have a course for recruiters. So specifically, if you're a staffing agency watching this, we have a separate course, which is £200 and teaches all these lovely use cases as well. But in the meantime, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, please subscribe to the channel if you want to see some other raw content like this going forward. And if you want a link to this specific mirror board, it will be linked right underneath the video wherever you're watching it. So just make sure to click on that link, opt in with your email address, and you will get access to this mirror board. Anyways, I'll see you in the next video. And if you enjoyed this, the chances are you would enjoy this video as well.